You were the only member of Congress to vote against the 2001 war authorization aimed to target those responsible for the 9/11 attacks. Talk a bit about what it took for you to do that and the importance of standing up 20 years ago and still fighting today.
Well, first of all, the way that authorization was written, it was 60 words and it was a blank check. It wasn't just targeted, but it set the stage for forever war. Here we are now, 2021. That authorization is still in place. It's been used over and over and over again for non-related to 9/11 events. It was used in Niger when our soldiers were killed. We didn't even know they were in Niger. It's been used for domestic spying and surveillance in this country. It's been used in over 19 countries for non-related events as it relates to 9/11. So we've got to repeal it. It was really hard, but my dad was the first person who called to tell me that was the right vote. You don't send our troops in harm's way forever and give that blank check over. He said, that's your job, your constitutional responsibility. And so Congress has the responsibility per the Constitution to authorize or not war, not give the president a blank check, any president to use force forever. So it was difficult, but you know, finally, those that were against me called me a traitor, said I committed an act of treason. Well, they're beginning to come around, and we were able finally to repeal both.
And we know you've been fighting for this for 20 years. Did you ever get exhausted?
No way, we don't get tired. Black women fight, you know, what is it? I ain't no way tired. So no, I mean, that's just who we are. You know, we've never make progress unless we keep fighting. This country is turning the clock back to the days of Jim Crow. And I believe it's black people who can really save the soul of America, and that's what we've got to do. So we got to keep going.
You were born in segregated El Paso, Texas. Today, you're the only African-American woman in Democratic leadership. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means to me that we have a long way to go here in this country as it relates to representation, because representation matters. But we have some phenomenal African-American women in the Congressional Black Caucus who are really making their mark as committee chairs and who really are empowered to really move forward the Democratic agenda. And it's my job to make sure those doors are opened for every African-American in the United States House of Representatives.
So when we look at this past year, we have so many blockbuster topics that have been tried time and time again to move through the Senate, from voting rights to police reform. What is it going to take to get this done?
It's going to take more organizing. It's going to take more voter registration and fighting against the voter suppression. We've got to pass H.R. 1, which is in the Senate. We passed in the House. And we've got to pass H.R. 4, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. And we have passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act twice in the House. So we have to get the Senate to move. And that means unless the voices of people are heard, especially African Americans, the Senate feels, and many members in the House oftentimes feel, they don't feel compelled to move until they hear from people in their districts who must hold them accountable.
You sent a letter to the president of the International Swimming Federation in regards to their rejection of the use of swim caps designed for natural black hair. Talk about that and the impact of the Olympics.
I've been on this hair thing since I started wearing my hair the way I wear my hair. I mean, this goes back to the 70s. And it's just outrageous that African-American men and women have to deal with these barriers still in terms of their hair. It's like, come on, years ago I had to lead the effort to get the military to back off of their requirements about wearing cornrows and natural hair in the military. And we have now the Crown Act that we're working to try to make sure passes. We passed legislation in California to say that black people, people of color, can wear their hair the way they so desire and the way their culture allows, and to be free. And this is another issue of freedom of choice. Black people need to be able to wear swim caps that based on the contour of their hair, their face, and do what's necessary that they want to do. And so to see this manifested now, it makes me very angry, but also it's a moment of where people can understand what systemic racism is. I wanted to be a cheerleader when I was 14 in San Fernando, California, and they didn't like the way I looked, the selection committee, because I wasn't blonde and blue. blue-eyed. Well, I had to change the rules of the game so that the student body could elect cheerleaders. I was the first black cheerleader elected, my first election at age 15, San Fernando High. But that was a barrier. It was racist, and we had to change the rules. So that's what we have to do now.
Now, I have agonized over this vote, but I came to grips with it today, and I came to grips with opposing this resolution.
Was any part of you nervous to stand up, being the sole member of Congress, to say, this isn't right, I simply cannot back this?
I wasn't that nervous. I was sad. I was angry. My chief of staff's cousin had been killed in Flight 93. I had been sitting in the Capitol when I had to evacuate. When Flight 93 was coming in, she was killed. And so it was really personal for me. And also, it was mind-boggling to think that, what, 3,500 people were killed. I saw the Pentagon, the smoke from the Pentagon in the air, burning when I was running up the street up here, up Pennsylvania Avenue. So that night when I was on the floor, you know, I was angry and I was sad, and I was worried about this country and what it was going to be doing and those young people who we were sending into harm's way. But believe you me, I knew we had to respond. I mean, I'm not a pacifist. I knew we had to bring these terrorists to justice. But there, you know, being a psychology major, the first rule in psychology 101 is you don't respond based on emotion after traumatic events. You have to take time, you have to think it through, you have to be rational, you have to know what you're doing. And then as a leader, yes, the country was in mourning, yes, everybody was angry, but you have to rise above that and say, I too feel you, but I have a responsibility to represent and to do the right thing.
I'm sure your dad was proud of you in that moment.
He was the first call I got. Yeah, and he served 25 years in the Army. He served in the 92nd Battalion in Italy during World War II, supported the Normandy invasion. He was a Buffalo soldier, served in Korea, came back to America, and he and my mother couldn't even buy a house where they wanted to buy a house in San Leandro, California. But guess what? I represent San Leandro, California today.
Comes full circle.
Yeah, justice is served.